Hey there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today I'm going to show you how you can make big impact with your small stamps. So my first idea when I sat down to design this project was to make some embellished letters. And I always give little note card bundles to my mom, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to do a monogram card. And I used the letter P for her first name, which is Phyllis. And then I started to think, well, you know, that would be really cool if you wanted to maybe get a little more use from your tiny sentiment stamps. So I thought, P, what sort of card would I make that would start with a P? And then I was looking at my stamps from our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry, and I saw this one that said Peace on Earth. And I thought, look at that. That would be a wonderful Christmas card, right? And then I got looking at those flowers, and this is the Garden in Blue set, and I thought, boy, that's really pretty done in those shades of blue. But as I got looking at the different flowers in here, I thought, you know what? This could very easily be poinsettia flowers. So I thought, let's do this again, do it in shades of red and green, and do a Christmas card. So you could do a big T for thank you, you could do a big H for happy birthday. You know, think of like the small sentiment stamps you have in your stash, and then go from there with this card idea. So you don't need anything special for this. You don't need any stencils or anything, and I'm just going to take a piece of cardstock, and this is I cut this 4 inches by 5 1/4, so it would layer onto a standard card base, and I'm just going to tape it down onto a gridded mat here. And the reason I'm doing that is because I just want to be able to make sure my first line is going to be straight. So I'm going to start off making my my line for the edge of my P here with a very light pencil line here. You can erase this later. And then to make the curve, a lot of times what I do is I'll just either find like an oval or a circle template to trace. This is a French curve. These work really well for this because you can turn it to get all sorts of different shapes, and I use mine for spray painting sometimes for masking with my airbrush, so it's a little colored, but that's all right. It's not going to bother us. And I'm just going to get the rounded part of my P using that. Actually, I'm going to use a smaller one because that's a little big. Let's try this one here. And if you, don't worry if you don't have quite the right size. What you do is you trace, you know, you turn it so you get the right size to trace. Go as far as you can, and then you can flip it around and continue that line using the other side of your template or using another template. It does not have to be perfect. I'm just going to tip it a little bit so you can see, you know, just get a very basic letter down. So for this card, I am going to use these same stamps, but instead of using these 2 shades of blue, I've switched out 2 shades of red. I'm using Memento dye-based ink, but of course you can use whatever ink you have. So if you can, I'm just going to tip that so you can see that I have a very light pencil line there. If you had a big stencil, like a wall stencil, and you wanted to trace it, or if you wanted to print out a very fine letter on your computer printer, that is totally fine to do as well. So I've got my stamps right here, and I'm going to start off with this this branch of leaves. Even though poinsettias typically have, well, they always, their flowers and leaves, like the red ones and the green ones, are the same. But this is going to be nice because that way I don't have to worry about cleaning my stamps off between color. What I'm going to do is go ahead and put this where I want there to be a lot of green leaves. I like to do it at spots where the letters are starting and stopping. It just gives you a little bit more like substance, and then you can space them around however you like. Just remember that registration mark on your peg stamps, that's going to tell you where the stem begins, so it's kind of easy to line up that way. And if you want any of the stamps that I'm using today, be sure to check out our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com, and I will have all of these products linked up in the video description. I think I actually want to give this a little bit more substance at the bottom, and so I'm going to do this this leaf 2 more times, and that's just going to give it a nice starting point. I can always throw in more leaves later if I want to, but I can't take them away. I do like to start with my biggest elements first because then I can fit everything. I'm going to use this this big flower in the Ladybug ink, which is a little bit lighter. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I know I can overlap the smaller ones if I need to fill in. Make sure you turn while you're going with these stamps a bit, because you don't want them to all look the same. You want a little bit of a random aspect to them. So just give them a little bit of a turn, and that's all it really needs. I think that's all I want to do with that one. Now I'm going to go with a smaller one, but this time I'm going to go with rhubarb stock, which is more of like a, it's kind of between like a crimson and a burgundy color. Now I can go in with this, with that brighter red too if I want to. That would be totally fine. We'll see what it needs as we get there. And if you want a little dimension, another thing you can do, and I'm just going to blot off that stamp, is you could stamp it first in the lighter red, and then you could roll the edges in the darker, and that will just give you a little bit of a two-toned effect, which is really pretty actually. I think I want to do that on a couple more spots here, maybe dangling over the edges so it shows up a little bit better. I'll maybe do one over there. And oh, we'll put one right there because that looks like it needs a spot. So even if your stick letter there wasn't perfect, it doesn't matter. By the time you get to this stage, you're not going to see any of those lines. You just need to have a basic, you know, that basic shape. Now another pretty flower that's in here, or leaf rather, is this fern. You don't need to use this, but I find that if I do that with a really light ink like New Sprout, I can just kind of put in a little hint of, like, it's almost like I've just inked the area, like I've just blushed in a little bit of color or rouged in a little color. So you could do that. You could also use some, like, if you had a really fun, like, baby's breath type of stamp, you could use that and just, you know, add a little bit of yellow or gold or anything like that. So just kind of keep that in mind. Even though a fern isn't typically used in a Christmas arrangement, I still think it looks really nice. Next up, I'm going to use this little vine and gray ink, but you could use brown if you prefer brown. It really doesn't matter. And I'm just going to put a few little flourishes here and there. If you use a gray or a tan, a light color like that, you can even stamp right on top of your letter. Now again, your registration mark is going to be the beginning of that flourish. So if you look there, it's kind of like the stem, or, you know, if this was a plant growing out of the ground, that's what you're going to get. It's going to be where the flourish would start. So that can help you if you're trying to tuck it away behind something. It just helps you from not having a weird bit just sticking out of place. Now, one more thing I like to do is, this is a Jelly Roll Stardust pen, and I love this because even if your flourishing isn't up to snuff, you're not going to notice. Just kind of throw in some loopy lines and I can't talk and flourish at the same time. I just throw in some loopy lines and squiggles, and it just gives you a little bit of sparkle that is really lovely. Now you can embellish this with some enamel dots or brads or flat backed pearls like I did in this one. Just use some little flat back pearls, but I didn't have anything like that in yellow, and the center or the actual flowers of poinsettias are yellow. That's what the flowers are, actually those little yellow things in the middle. So I can just go in with a paint pen and just do some dotting in the center over where those little dots are from the stamp, because it'd be kind of a pain to have to like ink these all up with markers. I'll just do a little dotting with this. But use what you have, look in your stash and see what you can come up with. You could also do some stickles in the center. That would be really pretty. I have a real tough time with stickles. I always seem to mess them up. And then to do the sentiment on this card, I'm just going to grab this little Peace on Earth stamp, and you can use, of course, whatever stamp you want to use for your card, whatever goes with your letter. Just stamp it on your paper and then punch it out with a circle punch. And I like to use like a smaller one to punch out the sentiment, and then punch a larger one out of a matting color. So what I'm going to do here is look at a couple card bases and see which one will look better. So I've got a green there. Yes, I'm still using up this huge batch of card bases. I've also got a red. I actually like the green better. I'm just going to touch it to make sure my acrylic paint pen is dry. Adhere it down. And that's a really fun card. It's going to build your design skills by doing cards like this, and it's just really fun to get used to get to know your stamp sets too. And then I would just put this on like that. Now that would be pretty in green, matted as well, so you can really use up your scraps and make this card your own. Now, something else I wanted to show you, because you probably are like me and you have a bunch of different sentiments, you can really mix and match this idea with whatever you have. So like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I was making this originally just to be a monogram card, and then I realized I could make it a Christmas card like we did in our demo. I could also make it a party invitation. I use this P is for party stamp. So look at your stash, see what you have for sentiments, even these weird little ones that are meant for like envelopes you don't really know what to do with, or tiny alphabet stamps that might have little sentiments with them. These are wonderful to mix and match with this technique using your peg stamps. So when you add new stamp sets to your collection, look at your other stamps, say, does this make my collection more versatile or less versatile? Or is this stamp simply replacing something I already have? You want to add things to your collection that are going to make your other stamps more useful. So try a stamp set, use it on its own, use it in different colors, see what you can do with it. Come up with new ideas. It's so much fun to play with your stamps, and I really love it when I can use an old stamp with a new stamp set and make it even more versatile. If you want any of the supplies I used today, check out the video description and visit our sponsor, Rubber Stamp Tapestry. You can find them online at pegstamps.com. Please give me a thumbs up before you go. And until next time, happy crafting.